Alrighty. Fate Stay Night. What can we say about Fate Stay Night? The 2004 visual novel that pretty much became one of the largest series franchises in the whole of Japan and has been pretty much a cornerstone in bringing anime into the mainstream interest, or making anime less of a niche and far more mainstream now. Fate started as one of those things that a handful of people within the anime and wider community knew about, but very few, and now it's become extremely large. Well, guys, I'm Silver, your host, and today we will be talking about one particular element of the Fate Stay Night story that has always interested me. We will, of course, be discussing the Counter-Guardian Emiya, also known as Rin's Archer-class servant, and his role in the fate path of the Stay Night storyline. Naturally, there will be a few spoilers for the fate route ahead, so if you wish to miss any fate route related spoilers, you know the deal. You should probably back out now. But if not, and it sounds like your jam, welcome. Now, Archer doesn't particularly play a colossal role in the fate routes of the visual novel and subsequent television-related adaptations. Granted, there's only been one adaptation of the fate route, and that was the Dean adaptation in 2006, I believe, 2007. But yeah, pretty much after the prologue section ends, Archer confronts Saber, and she severely wounds him with a single strike, which deters him from pursuing his own personal objectives, which manifest in the Unlimited Blade Works storyline. So he plays a largely supporting role in the Fate route. There's not a great deal he does in the early stages, but there is one very key moment after the elimination of Ryder and subsequently Shinji, where he is very important indeed. And that is the segment of the storyline where Shirou is captured by Illyasviel and taken to her castle. Now, I have always had a feeling, a distinct feeling in fact, that despite his cynicism and despite his outward and understandable hostility to Shirou Emiya, for obvious reasons, spoiler ahead right here, one kind of becomes the other. If you don't know that already, then you probably shouldn't be watching this video. Obviously, the heroic spirit Emiya, or Counter-Guardian Emiya, whichever term you wish to use, is a potential future version of Shirou. So you can understand the open hostility there. Emiya's scorned persona is a reflection of how his past self's ideals failed him and led to nothing but misery. With the earlier point about Shirou and Counter-Guardian Emiya, heroic spirit Emiya, being one and the same, let's open up into a larger question in this unscripted discussion of sorts, shall we? The potential of an Illya route, and how I believe that the Archer from the Fate pathway, especially as shown in the Dean adaptation of Stay Night, could potentially be a version of Shirou Emiya from the supposed Illya route that never came to pass. Now, look at it this way. There's one key moment in the Stay Night adaptation by Dean that stands out to me. A single line of dialogue. And I'm going to show you that a bit later on. But for all intents and purposes, it is a line that Archer says to Illya. And that is, "You never had any mercy, did you, Illya?" He refers to her by her name and pretty much stares her in the eyes as he does so. Now, I've always held an opinion that the route in which Shirou becomes Archer, for definite, is the route in which the Illya pathway took place. And that's because I believe that from various snippets and tidbits of information, and just in my own kind of headcanon, that Shirou's biggest failing could well have been not being able to save Illyasviel in a certain iteration of the Holy Grail War. I mean, let's look at the facts, shall we? She's a homunculus who, just like Illyasviel in Fate Zero, big spoiler ahead, you have about the next 5 seconds to click off if you want to avoid a few Fate Zero spoilers as well, is, yes, Illyasviel, just like her daughter Illya, is pretty much programmed as a homunculus to become the catalyst or manifest into the Holy Grail by design. So one way or another, I don't think there was any particular way that Shirou, in a supposed Illya route, would have been able to save her. I mean, look at it from this perspective. Either she becomes a catalyst for the Holy Grail, or she is potentially, let's look at it that way, potentially defeated by another servant. But who would be capable of defeating Berserker, you ask? Well, if you look at that line of discussion, there are plenty of options for people capable of defeating Berserker. Gilgamesh could defeat Berserker with ease using the Gate of Babylon, and I don't even have to justify why if you're familiar with any of the other routes of fate. And to be fair, Archer, if he'd have really taken the fight seriously, and I don't believe in the fate route, he took the fight against Berserker seriously. Because if he'd have utilised unlimited blade works at his fullest, just like Gilgamesh used the Gate of Babylon, he would have been able to decimate Berserker with ease. So, Gilgamesh, Archer, Saber is quite capable of defeating Berserker, because she does so in the Fate route, and quite easily. And I'm probably going to hazard a guess that on top of those servants previously mentioned, that maybe even Castor would have had a fair shot, so it's not like Berserker, despite all of his lives, is invulnerable. So the odds of Illya losing Berserker in her own route are quite substantial, to say the very least. And the odds of Shirou saving Illya in her own route through one means or another are likewise low, because of my own belief of her, being a homunculus and her purpose as a vessel for the Grail. So, a route where Shirou maybe fixates a concept of his own ideals upon protecting Illya, his essentially sister by way of adoption. He, comes to trust her, believe in her, care about her, and inevitably lose her. And that pushes his concept of reality into a dark place, and also forces him to further embrace his ideals as the hero of justice. I couldn't save you, Illya, but I could save others. I will save the world in your place. and that takes him down the route of the Counter Guardian Emiya. He's faced with the root of the world and a choice. 100 people lie before you. You can save their lives, but it comes at a cost. Will you make the choice to save lives where you have failed so far? Will you dedicate your life to the path of a Counter Guardian in death? And I think, yes. I think the potential of an Illya route where Shirou tragically loses his adopted sister could well be the route where he follows the path of the Counter Guardian. Now, I know that we've only had snippets and hints and discussion regarding the Illya route mentioned in anything Fate related thus far, and the Dean adaptation and my little theory in regards to you don't have any mercy, Illya, is just kind of grasping at straws, I will admit that. But it makes me wonder, could this Counter Guardian Emiya be the one who knew Illya, loved Illya, and potentially lost Illya in a past life? Maybe. I genuinely think so. And that's one snippet from the Dean adaptation that I believe reinforces that belief. Now, feel free to disagree with me. I would love to hear your opinions in the comments. And I think, no matter what happens, and there are a few of you who are going to be sat there and thinking to yourself, he's using the Dean adaptation for the basis of a discussion regarding an Illya route. The Dean adaptation of all things. The Dean adaptation is terrible. Yes, the Dean adaptation has its holes, but it did also follow, at least in the first half of the anime, the story reasonably well. It covered the arc with Shinji and Ryder fairly well, and also covered the Berserker segment with Illya fairly well too. I think we can all agree, no matter what happens, that Counter Guardian Emiya and likewise Shirou Emiya are compelling characters, especially in regards to their potential links to Illyasviel von Einzbern. And I think we can likewise agree that the scene where Archer fights Berserker at the pinnacle of his presence in the Fate pathway is probably the most awesome scene in the whole of the Dean adaptation.
You never did have any mercy, did you, Illya?
Illya?
My defeat may be inevitable, but you'll still have to work for it, Berserker. You can go easy on me if you want, but in the meantime, I'm gonna take 2 more of your lives!
Where is he? I can't sense him. Where'd he go?
Anyway, guys, I have been Silver, your host for this little journey, and if you've enjoyed this unscripted and somewhat incoherent discussion regarding elements of Fate lore and would like to share your own opinions, I welcome discussion. I welcome all forms of discussion and debate regarding movies, culture, pop culture, the lore of films, anime, and anime characters. So feel free to leave that in the comments. And as always, feel free to like and comment if you enjoyed this, because it lets YouTube know that people are having fun with the videos I make. And I will see you again very, very soon. Keep on supporting all things Fate Stay Night, guys, because goodness knows it has a million spin-offs by now. See ya.